going towards super. We are still able to understand super, okay? Coming back to employee. Now let me add a constructor here. I have parameterized constructor. So I told you that a derived class must have a parameterized constructor as well. Okay, so let me do this as per the rule. If you have a parameterized constructor in the parent, then child must have a parameterized constructor as well. Okay, so I'm adding a parameterized constructor and I'm adding a super keyword. In the constructor like this. If you have a parameterized constructor in employee, understand this, okay? Understand this. Hello guys, understand this. If you have a parameterized constructor in the employee class, who is responsible to invoke this constructor? If you have a parameterized constructor in the employee class, who is responsible to call this constructor? This parent class constructor, you will not invoke directly in employee. See, I will not do this, right? I will not do this. What I will not do? I will not create an object of parent class. Why I will not create? Just now I told you. Because generally if I have, just now I told you, right? I don't create object of parent class. Why I don't create? Because in case of inheritance, I create object of child classes, and on the child class object, I can invoke all the methods of parent. So if you are not doing this, if you are not going to instantiate the constructor, then who is responsible to instantiate the constructor? I hope this makes sense. Getting it? If you are not going to call the constructor, then who will call the constructor? Yes. So that's why someone needs to invoke this constructor. Someone needs to call this constructor. So who is responsible? A child class is responsible to call the constructor. And we use super keyword to invoke the parent class constructor. Getting it? So super keyword is used for chaining. This statement is used for constructor chaining. So first thing that we have seen is constructor chaining. And this constructor chaining is not of the same class. This is parent to child class. So first parent class constructor gets invoked and then child class constructor gets invoked. That's why you need to write this statement. And what will happen on this statement? A call goes to parent class constructor. I hope you understand this. So what will happen? Let me tell you. So as I told you, if you have 3 parameterized constructor, then minimum 3 parameterized constructor is required in the child. What I'm saying is, if you have 2 parameterized constructor in the parent, then minimum 2 parameterized in the developer. If you have 3 parameterized in the parent, then minimum 3 parameterized in the child. If you have 5 parameterized in the parent, then minimum 5 parameterized is required in the child. Getting it? So this super keyword is responsible to invoke the parent class constructor. How that's happening? Let me come back to my client, my caller. Look at the developer d is equal to new developer. This has started giving you error. Why? Because no default constructor now. Do you have default constructor here? In developer, no default constructor. There is only parameterized constructor. So you need to invoke the parent, this default constructor first. Say 1110, and then I'm writing Superman now, say, and I'm saying, say, $20,000, something like this. Can you see this? So what's happening here? Look at the flow. When I say new developer, from here, the developer class constructor gets invoked. It will jump to here. So these values, 1110 Superman and 20K will be copied here. And from here, as I'm saying, super ID, name and salary. So these 3 variables will be taken and copied to the employee. So those values will come here. So this super will make a jump to employee class constructor. So that will come here. So in short, the values which you passed here, ID, name and salary, will be copied in developer, and from developer they will get copied in the employee class. So they will come here. So this constructor gets invoked, this values will get initialized. Once it is executed, it will come back, and then whatever you are writing inside developer. Getting it? So that's why super is required. Why this super is required? To call parent class constructor. This is required to call parent class constructor. Why not in default? In default, this is same. In default constructor, it is already available. In default constructor, you know why we didn't write this? It is already available. You don't need to write it. It is by default. Now let's run and check. So you see again employee class constructor is getting called, and then developer, display developer, and if you see display developer values are new values. Pay attention closely. I have employee class, I have developer class. Developer extends employee, parent-child relation. Employee class has a constructor, 3 parameterized constructor. Okay, and in the discussion I told you child class constructor, child class object can invoke everything. Okay, in the discussion what we discussed is what is the discussion that we had? Child class object can call parent as well as child class members. Child class object can call parent as well as child class members. Members means methods and variables both. Okay, so that's why we create child class object. So I'm not creating parent class. Okay, so if you are creating child class object and in parent class you have a constructor, you have a parameterized constructor, right? Who is responsible to invoke this constructor? Who will call this parameterized constructor here? That's what the question is. So if you are not creating the constructor and passing the values, then who will pass? Then there is a one option, only child has to call, right? So that is why in child as well, that's why it's a rule. So if you don't understand, you can simply say that if parent has parameterized constructor, child must have. So parent has 3 parameterized constructor, child must have 3 parameterized constructor, minimum 3 parameterized, 3 and 3 plus. Okay, and if child is responsible to call parent class constructor, that is employee class constructor, how? With the help of super. This super will do a constructor chaining. This is for constructor chaining, but whose constructor will get called? Parent class constructor, not for same class. Super does the constructor chaining, but for this parent class. Which values that you want to pass? ID, name and salary, only those I'm passing here. Okay, and this must be the first statement. Constructor in con, I'm just writing con. Okay, super must be the first statement in the constructor. Alright, so how the call goes, let's see. From here all the values will get copied in developer. So here it will come, and then 3 values. From here you are doing chaining, so from here it will jump to employee, will get copied here. This gets executed. Values from ID will get copied to the employee ID, employee name, employee salary, like this. It will come back. It will come back to a developer, and then developers values will get copied. So parent constructor first, and then child constructor. Okay, and how we are doing chaining is with the help of super. How many parameterized constructor that you want to call? Pass. If you want to call only one parameterized, if you have, okay, currently we don't have one parameterized constructor in the parent. So if you want to call one parameterized, then pass this, do this. If you want to call 2 parameterized, then do this. If you want to call 3 parameterized, then pass 3 parameters, like this. Okay, currently we have only 3 parameters, that's why I'm passing this. That's it. And then the developer method, and then employee. So let me call employee first and then developer, doesn't matter. So this is how constructor chaining and inheritance works. This is how a super keyword is used in inheritance. Like, can you see that employee constructor is getting called, and then the developer constructor is getting called, and then employee method I'm calling, and I'm calling developer method. And all the operations, if you see, are happening based on the values that you have passed. Okay, this is 24,000. Yeah, after doing all the calculations, if you do the calculations, you'll get the answer.